All right, we've got a special treat once again for a exclusive webinar for those of you who have joined. Welcome, and this will be recorded for your benefit as well as those who've missed it. I've got my two good friends here and fitness experts, educators in the space of group training, Vanessa and Emma, who will be delivering this presentation primarily shortly on why group exercise matters as a form of experience. So we've had lots of conversations in the past, and we've got some exciting developments as well, which we'll share toward the end about our collaboration with a program right on group experience. So that's very exciting. But prior to that, and before we kind of dive into those specifics, we're going to sort of understand a little bit more about Vanessa and Emma, of course, and specifically their sort of philosophical angle with regards to group training and how they see that sort of being an important and integral part of any coach, any trainer's repertoire. And it obviously synergizes with what we do here at FTI. So without further ado, Vanessa and Emma, welcome.
Hello. Thank you. Hi. I'll put up our little slides here. Thanks for having us. We are so glad to be here again.
Yes, as always. And before you guys dive in, sorry, those of you who are dialed in now, you can put any sort of curiosities in the chat. So I suppose we can open the floor, Vanessa and Emma, for some conversation, Q&A style. So if we can go uninterrupted somewhat, and then I'll let Vanessa and Emma dictate accordingly. But please, you got curiosities, throw them in the chat so we can dive into it in more detail. All right, away you both go.
Yeah, definitely keen to get your interaction so we know that you're not sleeping. Not that we could ever possibly fool anyone to sleep, but important that you do interact, because we do have some questions to put out to you for those listening now and in the future. It's lots of things to consider today as we move through this webinar to help you deliver the best possible group exercise experience, or at least start on your journey to being able to be doing that. I'll do my quick intro, and then I'm going to throw you over to Vanessa briefly before we kind of do a little bit of back and forth. My name's Emma Masters. For those of you who don't know me, I've been in the health and fitness industry for around 14 years now. And prior to that, in a completely different life, I was in musical theatre. So a completely different industry, or so it would seem, because actually I think I take a lot of my skill set now, and a lot of what I teach and have put into our education, etc., has come from this background in musical theatre, where I learned how to help people feel things. I got up on stage, I sung, I danced around, and in doing so, I sort of fulfilled this need in me to help people feel stuff. I got them to feel emotions and nostalgia and, connect to things within them that perhaps they wouldn't otherwise if not watching that show or hearing that song, which I'm sure you can all resonate with. And when I skipped lives into fitness, I really took those skills with me when I realized that that's what we need to do in our fitness arena as well, is help people feel things and help people connect their emotions and connect back to themselves. And so I've been working in health and fitness, as I said, for 14 years, really trying to strive to do that. I've worked in group fitness across the UK and Australia, hence my somewhat dodgy accent. And I met Vanessa when working for a company called Virgin Active, where we both worked in different ways, kind of circling each other through the group exercise field. And it's through Virgin Active we really started to gel, because we got opportunities to create and train programs, such as their high intensity program that they call the Grid. And then we opened up a studio together called Virgin Active Barangaroo, which was their first boutique offering. And there we got to do lots of exciting things together as well. And it was then that we went, you know what? We really are lacking something severely in our industry, and that is group exercise education. It didn't exist anywhere. You got your gel or some very minimal group X certs in your basic cert line. But after that, you're kind of left by yourself. And unless you go off and teach something like Les Mills, where they kind of hand everything to you in a beautifully tied in a bow ribbon package, there's your choreography, there's your music, there's everything, you're kind of left a little bit like, okay, how do I do this thing? And so we got together over many a year and COVID and everything else to create what we've created, which is a group exercise program that we think covers everything you need in terms of educating group experience. And so before handing you to Vanessa, really that's why we're here today, is to discuss firstly why that's so important, and two, to give you some beginning tools and help you to be able to create this group experience we spoke so passionately about.
Thanks, Em. You can see little hints of where I kind of fit into that story. So I'll just backtrack a little bit and say my journey was probably the opposite to Em, in the fact that I came from an exercise science and exercise physiology background. I used to work with athletes. It was all about the science and delving into it and really understanding the nitty-gritty about how to get results and how to achieve training goals. And that for me was really, really important, until I started working at Virgin Active, and I found myself thrown quite literally into the deep end in group exercise, just because I kind of had a knack for it. And we feel that with a lot of group exercise instructors, have a knack for it and they don't really quite understand. And you're essentially learning by mistakes. You figure out what works and what doesn't. And that was our journey pretty much for myself and for Em. And when we came together, particularly at Virgin Active Barangaroo, what we were able to do was take some of Emma's emotional feeling, make you feel things background, and use my science and personal training background and education background to forge something that we found was much more powerful when it comes together. Because at the end of the day, yes, we want to make people feel something when we're instructing group exercise, but it's also they're here for fitness. There's that other element of it where group exercise has often been tainted with a brush that it's not the most specific way to get results, that it's injury inducing, that it's really up and down. And we've seen some of those stereotypes firsthand. And we know the transformative power of group exercise. We know how amazing it is to be in a community of people doing the same thing, feeling the same things. And we want to be able to give instructors the ability to recreate that time and time again. Because if we can give that to instructors, then we can bring more and more people into this group exercise world, which is why we're here. We believe that group exercise is the most transformative thing that you can do in your fitness journey, whether you're an instructor or whether you're a member. And we want everyone to be able to teach it, which is why we started our course back in those COVID days. Now, I do see a question on the chat box. Is that an actual question? Oh, no, that's just a welcome. Excellent. Okay. So we launched a couple of little trials over COVID because we wanted to ensure everyone had this amazing member experience. And so today, what we wanted to delve into is, what is exercise experience? Can we kind of label it? Can we go top line and let you understand why it's really important, or why we believe it's really important in facilitating group exercise? So we're going to go through that first. And we're going to show you a couple of ways, really just quickly, how you might be able to influence that. And we're going to go over what product and programming means in regard to experience. And then we get to show you some pretty cool things that we think that we've developed coming up. Now, we believe that an excellent experience will future-proof your career. As a group exercise instructor, if you're a classic instructor, it can be really hard sometimes. You might have to work at multiple venues because you're a contractor and you're coming in and out, and it's really quite challenging. Or maybe you work for one business and you are not sure how to branch out and level up, and you're not really sure if you're doing a good job. Well, we want to show you a couple of ways where you can self-reflect and see if that's the actual case. So today you're going to get Emma's 5 pillars of experience. Oh, we've got 2 ones here because they're all really important. We're going to understand the link between product, classes, and youth. And we hope that you also leave with a want and a desire to understand and to delve into this journey a little bit further. So experience is a number of things. And to understand what we talk about, we want to talk about the definition of it. So it can be you going through something, absolutely anything. You can have that experience. Or the process of observing something happening. You might not even be going through it. You might be observing it externally. These things that can generally happen over the course of time. So an experience isn't just a singular moment. It's quite often moments or several of those moments in time that shape what's happening. It can be knowledge or wisdom gained from what you have seen or done or heard. And it is also a verb. So you can be in the experience at the time. You can be immersed in it. You can be feeling it. And you can also learn from being in it and doing it. And it's because of this vast definition of experience, we wanted you to understand that you can influence experience in so many different ways. And that's what's really important to the group exercise journey, is it's not singular. There are so many facets to it that never really get talked about. And a really, really good way to understand this is, well, Em is going to get you going through in this next little bit here.
All right. So first of all, we want to talk about what does exercise experience mean to you? So if you can pop in your chat box, what does this whole, we've just kind of talked the last 5 minutes. We've used a lot of buzzwords, experience being one of them. A lot of people throw that word around, and it can often not really have much substance, because it's like, oh yeah, I'm creating an experience. And as Vanessa just said, that can be so many different things. That can be in an experience, watching an experience. It can be over time, it can be shorter. So it's very broad. So what does this idea of exercise experience actually mean to you? Can you pop it in the chat box, please?
Don't be afraid.
Easy typing, hopefully. It's big, long sentences. Oh, here we go. A sense of belonging, purpose, and growth. Oh, that's deep, and I like it. So you want to feel belonging, you want to have a purpose for being in that experience, and you want to achieve growth through it. That's awesome. We're going to come back to that because I really love those 3 words, and I think they're going to link to a lot of the things that we say today. Safety, another great word. I'm smiling because I talk about safety a lot. Safety is one of our most fundamental needs as a human. If we don't feel safe, then actually we can't really pile anything else up on top of that. So safety is a huge word that we dive into quite deeply actually in our education. Being in the trenches with a class. Okay, I like that. So kind of being in the midst of everything going on. That's going to make a lot more sense as we dive through our pillars as well. How people feel before, after, and during classes. Okay, nice. Yeah, so it's the change of feeling. Like we said about how do we feel is the thing that we want to kind of conjure, right? In touch with our emotions, in touch with how we feel. So it's the change of feeling before, during, and after. I really like that. Tarek says being present. Yes, I really like that too. Absolutely. Presence is a huge thing that we're all seeking. We're going to dive into that today as well. Bay says it makes me happy, but still learning knowledge and exercise. So it's about kind of being happy in turn with also learning as you go. Yeah, I really like that. Okay, really great answers, everybody. Really, really good. Let's flick to the next slide, because we want to have a little bit of a chat about what we believe group exercise is versus what group experience is. So what regular kind of just teaching is versus what we would like you to get to in the coming days, weeks, months, years of your career. Number 1 is that we believe it's being an instructor versus being a coach. So what we mean by that is I believe an instructor really is just there to tell people what to do. So if I was to instruct you, I might say heels outside of hips, chest open, butt down and back. I've just given you some words, some cues to help you move into a squat, but I'm just telling you to squat. A coach, on the other hand, might dive a little deeper into this and help you move better. Does that make sense to everybody? So a coach is actually going to help you move better, train smarter, achieve more, grow, that beautiful word there, become a better person. An instructor is just going to kind of tell. So that's number 1 difference that we believe is between exercise and experience. So that really runs alongside the idea of telling members what to do versus understanding what they actually need. So this is where we believe there's a difference, because an instructor might just come along, teach the class, tell them what to do, and then leave. Whereas a good coach, someone that's delivering experience, is going to really be scanning their room and understanding what they need as individual humans. They might be having conversations after class and getting to know them better. So therefore delivering a much greater experience every time they teach to those unique individuals. Next, we have no consideration for the environment versus an immersive environment. Now, I'm going to talk to you a bit about immersion in more detail later, but really this is when you walk into a stark room, white hospital lighting, and you're just going in and teaching or experience a group exercise class. There's no real consideration for the actual environment. It's just any old room where you could teach a group class, versus actually having consideration for the lighting, the sound, the smells, what you can feel. But we'll dive into that a little bit more later, but it's a really important one. Then we have disjointed flow in your club through your product, through your class, through your member journey, versus really intention-based member journey and class. So what we mean by this is thought. Is there thought being put into the way that the members are greeted, the way that the members interact with the classes on the timetable, the way that they are greeted at the door by the instructor? Is there a good member journey, or is it not being thought out at all? So that's what that one's all about. Values is a really big one, because I really believe that we should all have very strong values in any business that we go and set ourselves up to do. So whether you've got other jobs as well, you guys, that you are in and you wear a different hat in that business, you should still have really, really clear values when it comes to setting up a space, a business. Even as an instructor that's walking into somebody else's business, you as an instructor should also have very clear defined values, so you know how to deliver your classes, you know how much alignment you have with your participants, etc. So not having values versus having clear values, we believe, is a really strong definition or defining point between group exercise and group experience. Next, we have culture. Again, we're going to dive into this in more detail soon, but having no culture, so not having any care for the community, not being able to create friendship groups and things like this through your classes, versus having clear, amazing community vibes and a clear culture. It's a really big difference between the two. And then we have members come second, never a good idea, versus 5-star customer service. So how can we make members feel good every single time they come to us, versus making them feel like we don't really care, we're just teaching a class, they're coming in, they're coming out, I have no want or care for these people whatsoever, I'm just doing my job. Yeah, two quite big differences in how we make people feel, right? Awesome. So that's where we believe the differences lie. Now I want to dive into, okay, what is this experience thing? Because we've all given some great ideas and I love all of your words, but let's really dive into now this idea of the experience age that we're in, where experience is so important to everybody, because it is a buzzword thrown around a whole bunch. And we really need to understand why that word is being thrown around so much, and what is it about experience that is so important to our current generations coming through and being our consumers? Because this isn't just in fitness, this is in every business that you can imagine. So even if you walk into a restaurant or a hotel or your favorite clothing store, you're going to see that they pay really close attention to creating experience if they want to get ahead in their business. Because in the generation that we're in, we're far, far more interested in paying for experiences over things. That was pretty important maybe 50 years ago, when people were working in their 9-to-5 jobs, just wanting to save for their, one holiday a year and own the house and own the car and all of those great things. But what you'll notice is with these generations coming through now, people are far more interested in the photos that they can take and upload to Instagram and the way it makes them feel over getting a mortgage or being able to buy a car. And that's why there was a famous article here in Australia all about the fact that millennials these days are far more interested in saving money to be able to buy avocado on toast than they are to go and buy a house and get a mortgage. And everybody kind of giggles at that idea, but it's really true. We are fundamentally more interested in buying experiences over things. And I want to help you understand why that is. So I want you to put it in the chat box. How much are you willing to spend for a delicious breakfast out. So most of us are from Aussie on this webinar live. So we can think in dollars, but if you're listening to this later, we can think about in any currency you like. But how much are you willing to spend on a delicious avocado on toast? Maybe it's your favorite breakfast. It doesn't have to be avo. A nice coffee. Maybe it's got some beautiful latte art on the coffee. Maybe you're having a wheatgrass shot. I don't know. Think about how much you're willing to spend. Vanessa is willing to spend up to $35. Chanel is willing to wait, 40 plus for a big brekkie, 100%. 35 for Neil. Great. How much? Anybody else? Anything different in there? I did have one person tell me once that they just don't like going out for breakfast, so they weren't willing to spend anything, which is fair enough. But let's just think generally, $30 from Christy. I mean, over in Glasgow, the breakfasts aren't going to be quite as good as our Aussie ones, in my opinion, but I'm English. And all we have is a fry up, so it's not quite the same. Slow in inflation, it ramps up. It's true. So we're all in agreement then that on average there, I'd say our mean average was around $35 there. Yeah. And so we're all willing to spend $35. Now let's actually think about how much it would cost us to go and buy those ingredients. $5, $6 tops. Maybe if we got a nice sourdough, we're really spending 3, 4, 5 times the amount of money on the experience over just the food. Would we all agree? Because we could all go and buy the bread, and we could all go and buy the avocado, and we could all sit down in our house and we could eat the same breakfast there or thereabouts. Why? Why are we willing to spend 3, 4, 5 times the amount of money for the restaurant experience itself? So give me some words. Why are you more willing to spend that amount of money rather than have it at home? Tell me. Tell me in the chat box. It's okay if you don't want to admit it, because we're all feeling the same. It's why experience is so important. You're going to give me the words. Here we go. Vanessa doesn't want to wash up. I feel you there, mate. I hate washing up. So yes. So the convenience of having everything delivered to your table looking beautiful, right? Don't have to wash up. The atmosphere. Yes, Christy. So the ambience. Yeah. So maybe it's the nice smells, the good music, the beautiful toilets. Yes, the music and the lighting is good in the cafe. Yes, babe. So it is that feeling of being sat somewhere that feels nicer, right? The environment. Yeah. Company. Yeah, that's a really good one. So we can go with our friends. And of course, we can invite our friends round, but an experience shared is so much nicer, right? So we can go take our friend and put us both in an environment that feels good. The chit chat with the staff. Oh, that's nice, Tarek. Yeah. So also just the staff in general, right? We're having somebody come along and actually wait on us, which makes us feel quite good. Yeah. Neil says the convenience. So yeah, the washing up, the having it there, not having to cook it, the reputation. That's a good one, right? Those 5 stars on Google. I rarely go anywhere with anything above a 4.8. Vanessa agrees with me. We're food snobs for sure. What about something that everyone with a smartphone does these days? What does everybody with a smartphone do to their breakfast? I know you all know. Take a pic, yes. So we want to upload our beautiful breakfast and put it out to the world to show everybody else where we are because we want to show everybody else that we're at that trendy new restaurant and it's going to give us status. Yeah, it's going to make us feel good. It's going to make us feel luxurious. Yeah, good. All excellent answers, because these were the questions I asked myself way back when I was making these pillars. And I came up with the idea of these 5 pillars that equal experience based just on thinking about avocado on toast. Crazy, huh? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it was everywhere and that every business were using these exact same 5 pillars. So they are, number 1, culture. Number 2, ease. Number 3, luxe. Number 4, surprise. And number 5, immersion. And I'm going to dive into just a little bit of detail on all of these. I wish I had more time. We have lots of content to go through today. So I'm going to just dive through a little bit of content on each and how you might start to be able to use your brains to be able to start to implement some of these pillars in your business as well. And whatever you do, whether you are a group exercise instructor moving into other people's businesses, whether you're a business owner and you own a studio and you're going to think about this with more of a business hat on, whether you're a small group trainer and you actually sort of have half, you like rent the space, but you do have say over some of these things, all of this is going to work for you. You just have to think of it from your angle. So hopefully that makes sense. And a really great idea is to write things down as we go, so you can start to brainstorm, or if not, write down the pillars and you can come back to it a little bit later. So number one is culture. Now I've highlighted the word cult because, hear me out, I think there's some positives to cults. Not the scary ones where people drink drinks that aren't meant to be drunk, but some cults or cult-like atmospheres can be really, really useful in helping people stay within our business. Yeah, because we're helping people feel a part of something. We're helping them feel a part of a community. And who wrote in the chat box that belonging and safety were really, really important? Yeah, and it is. Belonging and safety are our fundamental needs. So culture is that number one pillar to help people feel those feelings. So how do we make people feel like they belong? How do we make people feel like they are connected to a community? Now, again, I could definitely talk about this subject for an hour on its own, but I'm going to give you 3 key C's to help you remember to start thinking about, how do I build culture? So number 1 is a common language. Yeah. So what I mean by this is when we speak the same language, we feel connected. Now, we're all speaking English right now, so that's really useful because it means that we can all understand each other. But what I'm talking about is deeper than that. It's like a secret language, a common code. My number one, representation of this, who does it really well, is CrossFit. They speak in a language of EMOMs and AMRAPs and snatches and WODs. And to the outsider, nobody would know what any of those words meant. And what that does is it creates 2 things. 1, it creates this bonded culture within the doors of the CrossFit community because they feel bonded through their personal language. But it also creates a severe amount of FOMO for everyone outside because they're all like, hey, what's this language that I don't understand? I want in. So a common language is really, really useful to help bonding your people together and helping create a little bit of FOMO from the outside looking in as well. So you could think about the names of your moves in classes. You could think about the names of your classes. You could name your exercise, certain things. And then you want to make sure your whole team, if there's lots of people teaching this same class, are all using that same language as well. Really, really important. Okay, number 2. Me and Vanessa could talk about communication all day. In fact, we do. If you come to our course, little hint. But communication is all about, are people understanding what I'm saying? And this is really fundamental as an instructor, as a small group PT. If people aren't understanding you, if you're not being heard, even if you're speaking English and your participants are English, then you're not off to a winning start. So you need to know how to deliver the right cues, the appropriate cues. You need to use your voice so that you're understood and that you're clear. And you then need to be able to layer those cues in an appropriate way so they make sense. So I'm just going to leave that there. Communication, very, very important. And if you're not a clear communicator, it's our little word, cue and communication, all blended up if you didn't catch that. If you're not a clear communicator, you need to learn how before you do anything else, because that is one of your fundamentals as an instructor. And then number 3, my favorite word, connection. We all like to feel bonded and together, and there's so many ways we can do that as an instructor. The small ways such as eye contact, smiles, learning people's names, asking about people, giving them time, all of those things are very important. But then there's other things, bigger things that you can do in a facility or a business as well, such as merchandise. So if you're wearing your merch of your particular community or your club or your studio, people feel bonded through that. It's like they're wearing the same uniform, a little bit like a cult again. See, told you, cults are good. Challenges, things like workshops and seminars, events, all of these things that are outside the norm of your regular classes are going to help people come together more often and feel more bonded. And then before you know it, everybody's going out for breakfasts and events and dinners, and you've created your own little culture of itself that will take care of itself and will stay with you for life. So culture, very number 1 important tool to creating experience. Number 2 is ease. Now, ease is all about that convenience factor, right? So we've all said that we didn't want to do the dishes. Totally get it. How can you put that hat on when thinking about your members? How can you eliminate stress through convenience? So my little example there is book your spot. So has anybody seen that? A couple of different CRMs are now enabling this, MindBody, ZingFit. It means you can go in when you're creating your classes at your studio and people can actually book their physical spot in class rather than just their place. So they can say, I want to be on bike 2 next to the speaker where it's loud, near the fan where there's nice breeze, right? What that's doing is it's giving them the ability to actually know where they need to be in class, and they can sit next to their friend and know that they've guaranteed that spot. So it's a really good example of creating convenience. Do we all see that? So what we need to think about is how can we create convenience in other ways? So we flick the slide there, Ness. So we can create ease by thinking the KISS principle at all times. So keep it simple, stupid. Yeah. So we want to make people's lives simpler, make them more convenient. So booking system, I've already given you the example for making the class timetable really accessible. So if you're a small group trainer, you're just working with your small group, maybe out even in a park, do people have really clear accessibility to your timetable and how to book? Or is it kind of a nightmare and kind of complicated? Make things easy, keep it simple. Yeah. Do they need equipment for your classes? If they do, could you sell it to them so they always have it with them so it's super convenient and they can do your workouts from home as well? Or can you just make the equipment really accessible and easy to use so things aren't overcomplicated? Could you maybe just use one piece of equipment per class rather than getting out all of your tools every class so it gets confusing? So do you see how we can start to use this word convenience and ease through sort of every step of our journey as an instructor? We can also do nice things like set up all the equipment before class so they can just arrive and everything's there ready. So they're not having to pull things out and get stuff ready before class. How lovely. Everything's just laid out in front of me, just like that avocado on toast. Yeah. So I want you to get your brains ticking on how you can make things convenient for your members in your scenario. Awesome. All right, we're going to skim through the next ones a little bit quicker. Those two I wanted to give you a little bit more depth on. These ones I'm just going to give you a shorter sentence so that you can, again, start to get that brain ticking and thinking about how you can create all 5 pillars in your facility. So number 3 is luxe. Luxe is about providing luxury and status. So we talked about uploading that photo, right, of the breakfast. That's where this one comes from. My prime example of this is the Virgin Lounge. I am, unfortunately, now a Virgin Lounge snob because they enabled me to go in there, and now I can only ever use Virgin so I can keep my gold status, so I can keep going to the lounge whenever I travel. Because when I go in there, I feel really looked after. I have a level of status. I feel very important. People look after me in there. I have this really great sense of 5-star service whenever I'm in that lounge. And I'm pretty addicted to that feeling as a consumer. So now I'm going to keep coming back. So keep that in mind. How can you do that for your customer, for your member? And really, for this, what I want you to remember is we don't all have to be rich to create luxe. Yes, you can have luxurious bathroom products and you can have the best of the best equipment, and that is all contributing to luxe. But actually, even with a tight budget, we can contribute to luxe by delivering 5-star customer service. So are all your staff well trained in service? Do you give people a good welcome, a good goodbye? Do you help them feel good every time they're in your presence? Are you going out your way to help your members? All of these things, just like you would feel if you walked into a 5-star hotel. How can you deliver that level of service to your members? Next, we have surprise. I love this pillar because this one is just about making people feel special. Simple as that. But we want to do it in ways that are unexpected and a bit of a surprise, right? So this is my example here. This is a place in Sydney that delivers smoothies at their smoothie bar, and they write people's names on their smoothie cups as they deliver their smoothies to them. So it's like, oh, a little surprise. I've got like a little love heart on my cup, and that makes me feel special. And there's other ways we can do that. We could leave little chocolate love hearts in the lockers every Valentine's Day. We could bring in a little affirmation card to put on everybody's yoga mat every now and again that surprises them in really nice ways. They're just a very small couple of ideas on how you can create surprise for your members. Another few ways is remembering goals or remembering landmarks. So maybe things like birthdays, or they've achieved 100 classes, All of these things can create this feeling of surprise and delight through the unexpected. So after today, I want you to go away and really brainstorm how you can create this feeling of surprise in your members through the unexpected feels. Sound good? All right, our last pillar is immersion. Yeah, now immersion is a special one to me because I told you I like to make people feel the feels. And I think this one is the place where we can make it feel the absolute most. Yeah. So immersion is this idea of disconnecting from the outside world, from the permanently attached to our mobile phones, from the emails and the boyfriends and the girlfriends and the sick pets and everything else that's going on around us in the world right now. How can we disconnect from that for just a little bit and reconnect just to ourselves? Yeah, so important, so needed in the world right now. And yet often people don't allow themselves the time to do that. They're very much go, go, go. I need to answer the emails. I need to cook the dinner. I need to take the pet to the vets. I need to see my boyfriend. I need to go and see my family. It's go, go, go all the time. And they're not able to create this disconnection to reconnect. And so we can create immersion for these people, helps them be present, that word from Tarek, even if it's for 45 minutes during the class with us. And so here's some ideas on how they might be able to do that. Now, again, these are very top level ideas. We could go into literally a whole day on most of these subjects, but I want you to start thinking about it because it's really, really important. How can we engage our members' senses to help them ground into the present? Because that's how we create presence. It's an old meditation technique. If we can tantalize their senses, their touch, their taste, their sight, their hearing, etc., then they're actually anchors into the present moment. So if you are listening to some amazing music and you're in the lyrics and in the instruments, it's very hard for you also to be worrying about the emails that you've got on your phone. So in our classes, we want to make sure we're using powerful playlists. We're actually thinking about the BPM, the beats per minute of the music, and how that interacts with our members. We need to be thinking about the journey we take them on through that music. We need to be thinking about the lighting and whether it's that stark, horrible hospital lighting or whether we can create some kind of immersive lighting that, again, helps them be present. We want to limit their distractions. We also want to look at what they're tasting, what they're smelling, what they're feeling, the equipment they're touching, or even the cues that we're using, getting them to feel more. It's a really deep, deep subject. And as I said, Vanessa and I are very passionate about it. So if you don't know a lot about creating this immersive technique in your classes, don't worry, we definitely have a solution for you. But those are my 5 pillars. I hope you enjoyed them. We're now going to take them through. I'm going to hand you back to Vanessa, and we're going to start to look at how you can implement that a little bit more, looking at also your values, your product, your programming. Thanks, Ness.
Thanks, Sam. I think the thing to remember with those key pillars is they infiltrate your classes in ways that you aren't expecting. And that's what we really want to allude to. And we'll explain that a little bit further on. We had a question from Tarek, and it was, does creating an experience make the session more memorable and hence increase your long-term retention and that memorable feeling for your clients? And that is 100% yes. That is the reason why every time we speak about experience, we come back to those pillars, because you don't need all of them, but you can use some of them to bring people's back into their present. You can bring their mind to what they're doing right now, and it helps them to feel all the feelings that they're feeling, whether they be emotional or physical feelings, because you're doing a fitness class, right? And when you get them to pay attention to that, it disconnects from everything else that's going on. It helps them to grow. It helps them to ask the right questions of themselves to be able to want to stay. Now, if you're not doing them right in your classes, or if the message that you're creating is a disconnect with that member, then it will have the complete opposite effect. It will completely drive them away, which is why these pillars aren't meant to be taken lightly. They're really important, because you can accidentally be getting these wrong and driving people away when you're actually trying to bring them to you. So that's a big part of what we like to do as well, is making sure that you really understand them in depth and how to apply them. And the application of that is essentially your class, is how and what do you teach? What type of classes are you teaching? Do you want to be teaching a different style of class? How can you use what you're currently teaching or learning right now into something else? Emma and I have been able to create and like invent a whole bunch of different classes because we're able to bring elements from other ones and what we've learned into brand new products. If people were to describe your classes, how are they going to remember them? What would they say about them? And how would they remember you as the instructor of that class? With all of these pillars of experience in your mind, how would you want them to perceive you? Now, this is really important because, as Tarek alluded to, people actually come for you. They don't come for the class. They come for you. And funnily enough, they come for the music. So the research tells us. So if you're unsure about any of these questions, then it's really hard for you to pinpoint who it is you want to be teaching in terms of the demographic, why it is you're teaching the classes that you are. Then that way your messages are a little bit wishy-washy. They're not complete. And you want to be really, really sure about what you want to get out of your teaching. Like we said, Emma said that you really need to know your values so that you can put that out into the world. And then that way you understand what pillars of experience you need to deliver that. Because your product is your brand. And your brand as a single instructor might be something a bit different, but we wanted to show you a couple of examples. So if you've ever been to a Barry's boot camp, they call it the Red Room. Obviously, it's a bit of a play on words there. It's meant to be like a bit dungeony, but not creepy. So it's dark. It's got these red and other colored lights, but mostly red colored lights. It's intense. It's hardcore. They know their niche. It's hard training. And they love a bit of flair with their instructors. Their instructors are they're your cheerleaders, but they're also a little bit of like your commando kind of instructors. Next up, we know these ones, F45. So their product, you've got the big board where all the members take photos of, but it's a circuit class. You know from the brand, it's a 45-minute circuit class. That's what you're going to get when you go to a F45. When you go to Barry's, you're going to get running and you're going to get some weights. Extend bar. So many players in this space now, KX Pilates. When you're looking at their brand, you know exactly, again, what you're going to get. You can feel it's a little bit more feminine now. It's not as intense. And the class is obviously centered around ballet. It's a little bit more flowy. It's a little bit more like fun and graceful and less, hardcore commando style. Where's my button? It's not pressing. There we go. Oh, there we go. Too far, Vanessa. And then we have something like a Soul Cycle, where it's centered around their ethos, but the ethos is around the equipment as well. It's the bike. You know you're going to get a cycle class when you go to Soul Cycle, but it's called Soul Cycle. It's about the emotion. It's about how it makes you feel. And here, when you're looking at an instructor, you're definitely looking at an entertainer. You're looking at someone who is going to bring you right into the moment and maybe not necessarily give you all those cue techniques. Now, we would like to do all of those things, but these are the things that you might think about when you're looking at a certain brand. Now, if you have other classes that you teach, what is it that is the brand about that class? What pillars of experience stand out for you when you teach that class or when you attend that class? The cool thing about this is, as an instructor, particularly a freestyle instructor, and this is why Em and I have really enjoyed our freedom as a freestyle instructor, is because we can have different products, almost different personalities for different classes that we teach. Because each one will have a different demographic. We'll have different people who would like to engage in that class. And we have a different, I don't want to say persona, but it almost is a different persona when you're instructing that class, because it matches what you're trying to give. Now, this doesn't mean that you're dishonest or that you don't know what you're doing. It means that you know directly who you're catering for right then and there at any time. And this is a really big part of group exercise experience that's really specifically tailored to small group training and freestyle instructors, because we don't often think about this. We let the big brands think about it. We let the Barrys do the work. We let the F45s do the work. And the key with that is that they're the ones generally coming up with the programming. There's someone in charge and you have to follow the programming. As an instructor, we're not saying that that's bad, but we want you to be able to create your own if you so choose. Or if you're in those facilities or you want to get into a facility like a Barry's or like an F45, we want you to be able to be the entertainer. We want you to be able to take on the persona that you need to be a part of that brand, because we aren't all necessarily born with that persona. You need to be able to adapt what you already have and deliver it in a way that's really, really meaningful. Coach Tarek says, your stand is your brand. Yes, it is 100% the case, because your members will follow you as the instructor. And any facility who's ever lost members because of an instructor leaving will know that is absolutely 100% true. Entertainment versus edutainment. Well, this is the fun thing about what we're about to do. So your product is your brand. Let's just talk a little bit more about what this might mean, and then I'll come to that in a sec, Tarek. So your product might be equipment that you're dealing with. So like I said, a bike. Maybe you've got a whole bunch of treadmills in your class. Maybe it's something completely different. Maybe it's body weight. That will lead you down into your class style and format. Who's ever been to a reformer class before? Do you know what you're getting when you're doing a reformer class? Well, you know you're going to be on a bed, but you have absolutely no idea what the format of that class is going to be. Every instructor has got their own kind of programming and way of teaching that class based on that equipment. But you can have different offerings and different services. I'm going to keep using reformer because it's a big one. You might have a tramp reformer. You might have a beginner reformer. You might have a low intensity recovery reformer. You can have a completely different offering and a different service based on that one product. Then you've got to bring in your community, which we know Em's pillar was really big on that. Who are you teaching this class for? Because if you're teaching it for yourself, then you're going to get a whole bunch of people who are exactly like you in the class and nobody else. But if you're teaching it for, for other demographics, you want to make sure that that's appropriate for them. And then the last two is, what do you want them to experience within that class? Do you want them to experience results, commando style instructing? Do you want them to experience happiness? Do you want them to experience leg burning? I don't know. Yeah, there's no right and there's no wrong answer in this space, but these are really important fundamental questions that you're asking yourself when you're building your freestyle classes. And we believe that these questions aren't being asked in the industry. They're not being asked by big boxes who put on a freestyle class. And freestyle instructors may not necessarily know they have the freedom to be able to ask these kinds of questions. All right, do we know our niche? Yes, here we go. Excellent, nothing there for me. Did I answer your question, Tarek, hopefully, by the way, with that retention piece? Yes, perfect. So what we have done with the product is your brand. Oh, I've already gone over this. I've duplicated my slides, everybody. Let's go again. Here we go. The one thing that you can do, if you've asked those questions about what my class is, equipment, style, format, all of those things, if you don't know how you're currently being perceived, one really good thing to do is a class audit. Now, the audit is really important so that you know, are you delivering high-level instructing? Are you actually targeting the members who you have in front of you? Is the way that you're delivering it in line with branding, personality, your own style? Are people getting results? And is the way that you're teaching and the way that you're learning continuing to level you up as an instructor? Or are you a little bit kind of stuck where you are? Now, you can perform a class audit on yourself by being a little bit introspective, but what we have done is created something that we want to share with you, with a couple of years of refining it as we've gone, because we want you to be able to shape the experiences that your participants have now and ongoing. Because of our dream, because we're circling back now to where we originally started, we want you to be able to deliver these amazing experiences. So we have put all of those audit questions, all of those things that you're not sure if you're doing, into a brand new course. Now, we're really, really lucky to be powered by the team of FTI to host our course and to help deliver it on their site. And we want to just quickly go over 4 of the pillars that we're going to go through. So, Em, do you want to talk a bit about queuing?
Yeah, sure. So our first, as I spoke way back when, in regards to if you don't have this, then you need to go there first. That's what queuing is. Yeah. So we talked about communication as being a fundamental way to creating your culture, to making sure that you're understood as an instructor. In our course, the first thing we do is go back to the fundamentals, go back to those building blocks, and really understand how to communicate. Yeah. So we learn the fundamentals in verbal, visual, and kinesthetic cueing. We dive deep into the verbal cueing side of things and look at things like vocal journey, understanding how to communicate different vocal intention. We also look at how we layer cues and the different types of cues we can use to really be understood. It's pretty juicy, the amount that we go into. I don't think there's any course out there in the world that really goes into depths into how to communicate in the way that we do. And we're pretty damn excited about it. So that is your cueing module.
And without even knowing it, those pillars that Emma went to, they're all drip fed within these pillars. They're all drip fed, into our modules. Our second module is coaching. And we learn how to cue and coach that behavior change. Behavior change is often something that's usually associated with PTs, which is why I'm really very passionate about behavior change. I think it's necessary when you're trying to facilitate a group experience, but we don't often know how we can use our words and our body language, like Emma said, like the cueing, to bring that out into the world, but how to deliver it to every single person who we have in front of us. Our third pillar, this is part of our experience pillar, is programming. So this is where we get to geek out on some pretty fun programming nuances that make it different from one-on-one programming. Now, if you've done a Cert 3 and a Cert 4, you would have learnt to program for a one-on-one setting. They don't teach how to program for a group X setting. So this is what we're going to delve into, is what are you actually teaching people? What are we training for when we're in a Pilates class, a yoga class, a HIIT class, a strength class? What are the differences and how can you manipulate them?
And then lastly, our secondary slice of experience is, of course, music. If you are not using powerful playlists, I'll repeat it again, you are going to be left behind. That means you need to understand the core blueprint of music. You need to understand about musical phrases and BPMs, and you need to know how to use them in your class setting. And we're not just talking about whether you have a beat-based class. So of course, music is very important if you are doing a rhythm cycle class, or if you are doing a class like Zumba, or any class where you're going to move with the beat of the music, of course, very important. But we're even talking about if you teach any class. That means if you teach Pilates Reformer, if you teach a boxing class, if you teach a circuit class, if you teach small group, music has a huge impact on the experience that your members have, even if you didn't realize it. And creating playlists that go with your class is so important. If you are that person still just popping Spotify on random in the background, you need to change it. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind. And so we dive in depth into music on this course as well.
So we've decided to bring this course with you in a blended method, because Emma and I love seeing people here face to face. We bounce off your energy, but we know the limitations of actually being face to face in the room. So you can do self-paced within some modules, but then you're required to come with us and learn live, just in this setting like we are now, completely online, so you can be anywhere in Australia. But the cool thing is that you can teach anything. You can have injuries. You could be in the most remote location and not being able to move your body. You can still participate. It's really very inclusive. And for anyone, you don't have to have had any group exercise experience to be a part of this. And you might have 20 years experience and never have been able to have any feedback on how you're teaching. This is also for you. That's the really cool thing, is when you're learning in a group, you'll learn from everyone within the group, not just from Emma and myself.
And feedback's a really important word that Vanessa just used there. A massive part of our course that was super important to us is that we get to give you actual feedback. True mentorship style feedback. So by the end of the program, at the end of the 12 weeks, you'll be submitting a full class of you teaching using all the skills that we've taught you. And then we're going to give you a full in-depth assessment as to where to go next to continually improve your skills. And I don't think there's any course out there that does that. And that's why we really, really importantly wanted to add that in, so that you get this in-depth knowledge, of course, but then also a way to implement it and continue to implement it. Really, really important.
And that's why that auditing of yourself is super important, because it's really hard to be introspective. You can do it, but then it's really cool to be a part of something, like you said, a community of people who go through that same process, who can get feedback and who can give feedback to each other as well. Oh, I clicked the link and now you're sharing. Can you still see my screen? No, there we go. That's fine. So there is a link there, but I'll get Tarek to drop it in the group chat, or I can drop it in. We are starting our intakes as of today, in terms of you can put in your registration and be ready for it to start next year in March. That is when our live dates will start. And we are looking to completely revolutionize the group fitness game. And we're so excited to be partnering with FTI, because the way that they have been able to allow us to set everything up within their portal. And we know that their coaching modules that they have are really on par with what we teach as well. We're just, we can't wait to be a part of this next year.
Yeah, terrific stuff. I want to second what both Emma and Vanessa said around the importance of education, and in particular, this program is an education immersion. We use the word immersion, and particularly learning these 4 pillars that they talked about. It's not taught at any level, Cert 3 or 4, for example, in Australia, and so that's why we got together, is because we do the Big Rock program as well, the MFT, the Movement Restoration Coach, that some of you have either done or are doing in this call now, and those who are going to be listening. So it is this immersion and mentoring, which Emma alluded to, that is also important. That feedback that you're going to get, and ultimately that immersion of education, that you can be confident and super competent in how to deliver a great experience, and if that could be semi-private, small group settings, larger team training, boot camps, and just as Vanessa was mentioned in previous slides, is that you've got your Barrys, you've got your different flavors, and so you're the essence of who you are. And Emma talked about the values that come out is really key here. So this transcends the fickleness of personalities in my understanding and time spent with Vanessa and Emma, and it really is an inside out approach, and it creates this memorable exchange between the coach and their group. And so that's what I wanted to add. It's really important, and hence why we believe in this longer way of learning and succeeding ultimately. So we're excited to launch it in March. You guys can also reach out to Sammy. Sammy is an important part of the FTI team, and Sammy can reach out to each of you individually. We do have quite unique offers as well at the moment, and solutions for those of you who either wanted to pique your interest from this presentation. We want to have a conversation with you. So I'll leave it at that. Vanessa and Emma, did you want to add anything else?
One more thing, actually. One of the audiences that I think may not necessarily see this webinar, and hopefully you can take this as a solo clip. But I was a personal trainer for years, and I know a lot of personal trainers who never want to be a group exercise instructor because they have this image of what a group exercise instructor is. But then they go away and they open their own studio. And what they do is they start small group training or small classes as part of their offering for PT because it's more cost effective. You're a group exercise instructor. As soon as you take yourself from 4 or more people, you're now instructing group exercise. And if you've never done anything like this because you don't consider yourself a group exercise instructor, I think you're really missing something that could be extremely valuable to you and will only ever give you benefit. It won't take away from anything that you offer as a personal trainer. And my own personal business has always benefited from having both under my belt.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And that's a good perhaps paradigm shift as well, going from that sort of stereotyping to saying, well, you know, you can create another component or aspect of you know, call it diversification. And in this case, you know, making someone realize that it's not group exercise anymore. You know, it's the experience of it. So thank you both, truly, and appreciate those who stayed the course. And as I said, knock on the door, Sammy will reach out. But most of all, we hope that you kind of got a lot from this presentation. I've you know, sat in on a few times and it's still geek out on it. So yeah, thank you, Neil. Excellent. Second that. So thank you for your time, Emma and Vanessa, and your passion. And we look forward to the launch in March.
Yeah, us too. Whoop, whoop.
So excited.
All right. Excellent. And have a great, Christmas and New Year's. And we look forward to a fantastic 2023.
See you there.
Bye-bye.